Hi, honey.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I love your shirt.
Thank you. Yes, this is your
It
shirt.
is mine. I
I feel
love when
like,
I donated half my wardrobe to you.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You have pretty much been supplying my outfits like 4 out of 5 days a week.
I love it.
So, yeah,
I would much rather you wear them than them just be sitting in a Goodwill somewhere or
yeah,
something.
true.
So
Or just like at the bottom of your closet.
exactly. Exactly. Sorry. Um, it doesn't feel like a Friday to me.
Why?
Because I haven't like working at a school. I normally work Monday through Friday, but I have been off work Thursday and Friday because my um, fiance Ethan's great grandpa passed away very
Mhm.
sadly, and he was in the military. He fought in the Korean War,
Oh,
so his funeral has been like they've done like a lot of stuff for it. It's
mm.
like we had the normal Catholic funeral on Thursday, and then this morning we went to the military burial in Leavenworth,
Mhm.
Kansas, and it was actually really cool because they had like, the soldiers, and they did like the little flag, like they
Mhm.
like unwrap it and wrap it, and we got to see them like put the burial. So it was really cool, but so yeah, that was all good. Just been spending a lot of time with family, talking to
Yeah.
like all day, 2 days, which is fine. And then randomly, Ethan's cousin and his girlfriend, we were gonna go yesterday, but we didn't end up going. After the military burial today, we were like, let's go to a casino, because
Okay.
that's normally what you would do on a Friday morning after your great grandpa's um, military burial. You know what I mean? Like I think
Uh-huh.
that's what everyone does.
Yeah.
So I went to a casino this morning,
Okay.
and it's Friday, and like if you know me at all, like that's not
No.
I don't do that kind of stuff at all. I've never been before. Um, so that was an experience. Ethan and I both went, and it was fun and it was an experience, and I'm glad we got to do it, but we're both on the same page of like, okay, no interest in doing that again.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so but it
Yeah,
was
I've
fun.
never
It's just a
been.
weird day. It just feels like I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just a weird time. But I had the typical, I started with $20, got
Mhm.
up to a little bit over 100,
Oh,
left with $0.
okay.
So that's how we were. And we technically lost $80 because Ethan gave me 20, and then he spent 60 on himself. No, he spent 40 on himself, and then I spent 20. Between the both of us, we spent $80, and neither of us left with any money. So
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
was great.
That's okay. I mean, some of that is just like paying for the experience. Like you just
That's
have to
it
go
too.
in prepared.
We
Yeah.
were there for like 2 or 3 hours, and we were hanging out
Yeah.
with, his cousin and his girlfriend, and like it was fun. So we had fun, but it was kind of like, okay, check off the list of like, did that, but
Yeah.
not my thing. It was so much busier than I would have expected on a Friday morning.
Yeah.
We were there at like, I think we got there at like 10 o'clock, and there was like a lot of people there.
That's surprising.
It was kind of sad, like, because everyone, like most everyone there was like, it looked like they were by themselves and just sitting on this, like, it was just the vibe of like, I think these people are here like every single day.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
these are the regulars. So
Yeah.
it was an experience. We should go sometime, or you should go sometime and try it.
Yeah, I think it'd be a fun experience. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily anything that I would probably make a habit out of, but it seems
Right.
fun. Like just
It
a
was
fun thing to
fun.
go do. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, we didn't do it. Ethan wants to maybe go back to do more like actual, like play poker, like play
Mm.
games. We just did the slot machines.
Mm.
So he wants to go do something that like you actually can have some kind of, skill
Sure.
to like get money rather than it just being random. But I think what's fun is the like just random seeing all of it. Oh my gosh. I just was like, I'm still beating myself up over. At one point I looked at my stuff and I had over $100, and I was like, why didn't I just leave? But I didn't. But anyway, so yeah, even we left, we were just like in such a bad mood when we left. We were like, that was like not fun. Like we just left, like
Oh,
just wasted a bunch, just I mean, just the fact that we wasted a bunch of money.
Yeah.
and we were tired, and we were just like, okay, that sucked. But anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, it just feels like a weird day for me. But I did get this new super fuzzy brown blanket.
Ooh, I love that.
So that's also like providing a major serotonin boost.
Yeah. Much needed after the
Right.
loss. Yeah.
Yeah. And I only have like 10 fuzzy blankets. So I'm
Always
kind of
room for
running
one
low.
more.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I had to get this one because I didn't have one in brown yet.
Right. Well, that one's different. Yeah.
Exactly. I've been into brown lately. I just like I just like decided that I liked brown. So then I got this blanket and
Mhm.
this jacket and an order of brown pajamas
Oh, nice.
on Amazon. Yeah, I just was like sitting. I act like Amazon's not real money. I literally get on
Mhm.
Amazon when I'm in the middle of doing something and just like it's like a phone, it's like a game on my phone. I'm just like,
Uh-huh.
that's cute, like that. Okay, check out, swipe, because I don't even have to put my card information in
Right.
because it's saved on there. So it's
Mhm.
literally just like, yeah, I need to like, I feel like I sound unstable with finances when I'm saying like I was gambling and I'm like spending too much money on Amazon, but
No.
I don't
No,
know.
it's
Money's
fun.
kind of not real. So,
Well, that's true. Yeah.
but anyways, what's new with
Anyway,
you?
nothing. Whole lot of nothing is new with
Yeah.
me. I was back in the office all week this week.
Because you're finally better from COVID.
Yes. Yes. So that was nice to be back. It does kind of remind me how much I liked working from home, but
Yeah.
it's all right. I think it's fine. It was nice to see all my coworkers again and just chit chat and stuff, because that's something that like I really missed. Just hanging out at home was not getting to really talk to anybody. But
That's not relatable, but I guess I understand.
well, it's almost like I could do like a week on, a week off or something.
Sure. Or like go in a couple days a week. And
Yeah, split my time a little bit more would be nice, but
Mhm.
I don't know. They rely on me a little bit too much there, so I kind of have to go in every day, but that's all right.
Every time I drink out of this cup, I think of you because the straw is metal. And so it always like hits my teeth.
Oh, yeah, I hate that.
And I know that's like your least favorite thing ever.
Yeah, I have to use plastic straw, or I have taken to using metal straws with like a silicone tip, because then I don't feel like I'm going to break my teeth off when I get in them. But
yeah, fun fact, if anyone's wondering, Allie literally can't use metal like utensils or straws or anything. It's a no-go. So
I'm getting outed. It's true. I don't know. I don't like it.
yeah,
And I
there's
think
nothing wrong with that.
not everybody touches their utensils with their teeth. Like maybe I'm kind of in a minority doing that. But
Sure.
I know that Thomas does, and it doesn't bother him at all. So I don't know.
I don't really think about it. I don't know.
Consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, exactly. There's some sensory stuff I'm like really weird about and some I don't even think about. So I feel like everyone's like that. But I do think it's kind of interesting. I like hearing about what people are like weird about.
Yeah.
Like I find that kind of a fascinating thing when you get to know someone.
Yes. I think it's very funny, especially when it's like people that you don't necessarily know all that well. Like I see a lot of TikToks and stuff where it's like, oh, I can't touch cotton balls. Those hurt. And it's like, on no planet does it hurt, but it's just like, what a weird thing to try to describe. That's like, I hate it so much that it like causes me pain. Yeah. So
I was also going to tell you, I'm not a big egg person, but the other day I was like, I've never had a hard boiled egg before. I want to eat one. So I made some and then I ate them and they were so good. And I was like trying to figure out why I liked eating it so much, not even necessarily the taste, but just the texture. And then I had to explain to Ethan, I was like, oh, it's because like I've always wanted to eat rubber,
right?
Like pocket toys and stuff, or like foam, anything. Like I want to eat that, and that's like the closest I feel like you can get is that rubbery egg.
Yeah. Well, when
I had to explain to Ethan, oh, that's why it tastes like it's not supposed to be food. That's why I like eating it. It tastes like eating rubber.
Yeah. Well, when you said that, that's exactly what I was going to say, was like, it's the texture of Polly Pocket clothes. Yeah. Where you just want to bite it. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. So I was just closing my eyes, like pretending I was eating a little purple
dress.
Floral Polly Pocket dress. And he was like, you are psychotic. I was like, I'm sure Allie will get it.
No, completely.
Yeah. So tip, if you have like this feeling inside of you that you want to eat Polly Pocket clothes or similar items, make hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah.
You're
Stick
welcome.
to regular food and eat an egg.
Yeah, safer, much safer alternative. So
less of a choking hazard.
would recommend.
Yeah. Okay, well, today I am bringing you something a little bit different.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I know that you saw the title.
I just peeked at it. I haven't read like anything.
Okay, good. So the background of this is that I used to spend my summers up with my grandparents in Michigan. And my grandma used to live in like a lakefront community kind of thing. And it was right off of Devil's Lake. And like, as a young person, I didn't necessarily wonder that much about it. Like, that's just what it was called. But as I got older, I kind of asked, like, why is this called Devil's Lake? Like, that's creepy.
Kind of creepy.
And they were like, well, like, nobody really knows, but it's just some old legend. Like, I don't really know what it is, but it's just some old legend that stuck around. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun topic. Like, let me dive into this and figure out where this name comes from. Because what a weird
so this
thing.
Is new information to you now.
Some of it, yes.
Okay.
So I looked it up and I should not have been surprised. It was basically just like a kid drowned there a long time ago. And the parent was like, the devil spirits like pulled him down to the bottom of the lake.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of like how a lot of legends in that area kind of started. Was just like
a pretty like religious area.
Yeah, well, and like when it was first settled, like it was mostly Native American land, and that's why you get like, especially Wisconsin, I know, is really known for having kind of funny, like hard to pronounce names. And a lot of that comes from like Native American people who were living there who named all this stuff. And we have a lot of that in Kansas too.
Yes, like we do.
Ottawa, Wichita, stuff like that. So up north is similar. And so there were a lot of these legends or, you know, folklore that had already been established. And then that stuff kind of stuck around when white people came. And so this lake, like the long and short of it is just that some kid drowned there. And that there was speculation that it was already like haunted or some bad vibe type lake. And then lo and behold, something bad happened. So anyway, that was the impetus for all this, but I didn't think that was very interesting. So then I was like, well, what else can I learn about this area? So,
because you're kind of like a spooky girl.
Yes, definitely.
You like spooky ghost stuff and paranormal stuff and true crime. Like you're kind of a spooky girl.
Definitely.
So it doesn't surprise me that this is what you are like wanting to, you know what I mean? I love it too, but I don't feel like I'm as into that stuff as you are.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoy it, but you're like kind of into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I even found some other ones that I was like, I'm going to add this to my notes. Like I want to come back to this later.
I love it.
So, but this one is all Great Lakes centric.
Okay.
So I have 3 kind of stories or legends for you, and they're all focused on the Great Lakes.
Okay.
So to preface, I will introduce the topic and I will ask you maybe where you think it's going or if you've ever heard of it or anything. And then I'll tell you the stories and the background and everything. And then at the end, I'll kind of get your reaction or like what you think maybe is happening here.
Oh my God, fun.
Okay. So I have 3 major stories.
Okay.
And they are ghost ship sightings in the Great Lakes.
Okay.
A legend called the Black Dog of Lake Erie, and the legend of the Michigan Triangle.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this. So the first one, and it's also a little bit more scripted than yours was. So I'm sorry if it sounds stiff.
I love it. I mean, you're telling me you didn't memorize all these stories?
No,
and all the
unfortunately,
facts
I'm
about
so
it.
sorry. And there are sources, and I will add the sources to the YouTube description as well. So ghost ships. This one isn't much of a story, but more of kind of a warm-up of what we're going to talk about going forward.
Okay.
So in the Great Lakes, there are thousands of shipwrecks, like over 60 or 6,000 documented. And that's not to say how many have actually happened. So there are a lot of lighthouses that try to guide sailors, but often those are put in place after something happens that necessitates them. So that being said, the water is generally relatively calm. There are few predators, though there are reports of various cryptids and a Loch Ness monster type Bessie in the Great Lakes, but nothing like what you'd find in the sea. Like there's no sharks or anything like that. And the lakes, relatively speaking, are pretty small, especially compared to like seawater. So people don't necessarily just end up lost randomly like you can in the ocean. However, many do underestimate the Great Lakes, much to their detriment.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sure.
Ghost ships are a relatively common sighting in the Great Lakes. In fact, in 2016, a ghost ship spotted near Marquette actually ended up making its way to CNN.
Ooh.
So people report seeing ghost ships all the time, but it was really significant that they were able to capture a video of it, which they did, and I'll include the link to that as well. And that it blew up enough to make its way to a source as big as CNN. So what do you think about ghost ship sightings? What do you think maybe is going on?
So I guess my first question would be, I feel like I don't fully comprehend the size of the Great Lakes in terms of when we're talking about ghost ships, we're just talking about people who are like riding on the lakes like for fun, or are we talking about like things being transported?
Yeah, so see, this is why it's good to talk to somebody who doesn't spend all their time there.
Yeah.
So the Great Lakes, of course, are open to like just the average Joe with his boat. But these boats, and I may have put a number in there somewhere, but these boats are often used to like actually transport a lot of like load. And so they're like big shipping containers.
Okay, because I was kind of picturing like little boats. Like I'm not now I have a better picture. So this is like large ships transporting.
Yes. And so
items.
like I know one of the ships in my story somewhere, it said it was over 100 feet long. And so like an average just like person with a boat, it might be 12 feet. So it's going to be pretty big. And that was a ship that was built like in the 1800s. And so now like technology is better. And so those ships are a lot bigger. But yeah, shipping containers, even like a military like vessel would end up in the Great Lakes, because a lot of that's where my dad was stationed, was at Chicago. So they do like military boat building there sometimes before they will like take it out. So yeah, you'll see like big ships, like not just a boat, but like a ship.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then are people knowing that these are like are thought to be ghost sightings because they like disappear, or they just like report seeing it and then they're like, that's not like registered? Like how do people get that it's ghost sightings and not just like there is a ship right there?
Yeah, a lot of them are like foggy.
Okay.
Like, so it's like the traditional like ghosty look.
They kind of like see it and then it like disappears.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This sounds very interesting. I don't know.
And this is like relatively common. Like a lot of people that live there have seen something weird, like far out. And I'll talk about like maybe what else it could be, but this one, maybe there's not as much to speculate on, but.
Well, I'm also kind of the opposite of a skeptic. Is that the word I'm thinking of? Like I'm pretty, I don't know, my natural reaction to people citing that like they've seen something that doesn't make sense or anything is like, I just naturally believe people. Like I just don't feel like it doesn't make sense to me for, especially in this kind of situation, when we were saying many people report it, for like a bunch of people to just like lie about seeing something they didn't see. So when it comes to any of this kind of stuff, I'm naturally inclined to like, that sound like, I'm sure that happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm the same way.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm glad that you said that because I have something fun to talk about. So
Okay.
all that being said, I did want to start with this one because my grandparents live right off the shore of Lake Michigan, like literally right off the shore. It's just down a hill in their yard, and then the water is right there. So it's super
Cool.
duper close to their house. And they have actually seen ghost ships before.
Mm.
And they have one story specifically that's always stood out to me because it seems different from other times that they've kind of said, like, yeah, we thought we saw something. I don't know. It was weird, whatever. So they have a telescope that they keep in their living room because their living room windows, it's just like 3 big, huge glass windows, and they face the lake.
That's adorable.
Yes. So they have this telescope there just so that they can look out and see the water, or see when these big ships do pass by, they like to look at them. So they actually saw this ship through the telescope first, and they ended up, sorry.
Is this during the day or at nighttime?
During the day.
Okay.
I think it was like morning, because my grandpa gets up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and my grandma sleeps in a little bit. And so he actually like woke her up to be like, you have to see what's going on right now.
Okay.
So, so they saw the ship through the telescope and ended up watching it actually float by like it was being sailed. And they told me that it was too early for it to be fishing boats or anything like that. But even then, the average fisherman who would be out, especially at that time of day, would just be on like a little personal boat.
Mm.
But this one they described as having huge masts. So the mast is like the sail. And it was sitting super high above the water, not like the bottom of the ship, but it just sat really high, where if you're in a fishing boat, like you're kind of like sitting in the water almost. So they said, so they're not really like ghosty type people. So I do take their word for it. And anytime that this story in particular gets mentioned, they're always like, oh my God, yeah, that was crazy. And they get like really serious about it. And this isn't really like one of those things that they think that they saw, that they just kind of brush off. Like, this is something that they know that they saw.
They're like, this is something that happened that we can't explain it to this day.
Yes. Yeah. So they take it super seriously, and it's really fun to like get them started on it, because they will just go and go about like, it was so weird. And I couldn't believe how real it looked. And then suddenly it was just like not there anymore, but it didn't, like, they can see so much of the lake. They're like, it didn't go anywhere. Like it just, it was never there in the first place. It's so weird. So anyway, it's fun to listen to them talk about it. So
yeah.
Anyway, a lot of these ghost ship sightings are attributed to fog or mirage due to the light reflecting a lot of times into fog or clouds or on the water in weird ways. And then also sometimes people who aren't as familiar with the area could be seeing lighthouses through the fog, or just a lighthouse that's really far away, and they're thinking that it kind of looks like ghosty, I guess, from that distance, because it almost has that like really tall look of some like old ship masts and stuff. So, but I don't know. I think that with over 6,000 shipwrecks, there's bound to be 1 or 2 that might come around every now and then, maybe to finish the voyage that they started. What do you think could be going on with ghost ships?
What do I think could be going on with ghost ships? I think that's something about the being on the water. Like there's something about that feels kind of different, or like more, I don't know, there's something about thinking about there being an event of people dying like in water and not on land. That could be some kind of like, that's a different experience and can't be move on to whatever. I don't know, there's something about it not being on land that seems like it kind of is, just keeps getting in my mind.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, you always have to think about when things become like popular to happen in the area. Like maybe people just kind of get in their heads that like this is something that could happen. So then maybe they're like seeing something that they want to, or is like implanted in their heads rather than like authentically seeing it without ever hearing about it. But I don't know. Is there any that you were able to find stories of some like super traumatic event with ghost ships thing, or was it all just kind of like normal, like this malfunctioned or?
Yeah, I mean, that was what I was going to say when you were talking about something being different about like water versus land. But I'm sure that there is something to that, because naturally, like a lot of these deaths due to a shipwreck are going to be drowning. Like it's not
Right.
somebody dying of old age or anything. So I'm sure that that is a lot more traumatic and a lot more like emotionally charged than just somebody who maybe like it was their time and they kind of just fell asleep and never woke up.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if that plays a part in that, like the fact that it is more traumatic, and then also there's so many people involved. Like sometimes these vessels could have, you know, a crew of 50 or more, and so that's a lot of people to go under, or a lot of people to like completely go missing all at the same time. Right. So I guess that maybe if enough people are kind of impacted by something, maybe that's a reason for it to come back around.
Yeah, there's like more energy around the fact that it's like this happened to a big group of people right here rather than, well, I also think like something that by the way, I don't fuck with water. Like I don't swim or go into water that I can't, like, unless it's a swimming pool. You know what I mean? I don't do bodies of water like this where that are large and you can't see things. Like that is like actually kind of a fear of mine. So that's immediately like, oh, this freaks me out. But I mean, with a large body of water like that and I mean, there's dead bodies in that lake. There's tons of them. So I don't know. I mean, if you're someone who believes, which I mean, like me, and, you know, people have souls that leave their body when they die and all that kind of stuff, then if there's literally tons of bodies at the bottom of the lake, I don't think that's the craziest thing to think ever, that like some of it is moving up towards. I don't know. It's something like that's scary. Like seeing something on water would be so much scarier than land to me. Like something about, and I feel like there's a lot of kind of superstitious, like spooky stuff about sailors anyway, or like with ships, and like that's like its own thing. So
yes, that's very true. Yeah, that's actually,
but that's very interesting. And like you're like, that's the other thing, your grandparents, like I don't think your grandpa was like, I'm gonna wake her up to show, like, you know what I mean? I just don't believe that they would be lying about that, especially if every time you say something, they get all worked up about it. Like I don't not believe that they saw what I don't know. Like I just don't. But then
I completely agree.
That's I don't
know. Okay, so your remark about sailors being superstitious is actually the perfect segue into the black dog of Lake Erie. So it is said that a black Newfoundland dog, so those are huge, those are like those
love
huge,
them,
fell overboard on a canal of Lake Erie, and the crew made no attempts to save him.
Bro, fuck this already.
After that, the same crew began to report strange instances of hearing the howls and sounds of the dog all throughout the night. So that's our introduction to this story.
Right away, I love it.
What do you think about this dog? What do you think it might do?
My initial reaction to that is like, I kind of want to cry. Just because, I mean, I don't know, we're both animal people, but like we're both especially big dog people, so that makes me really sad. But I love the idea of a like revenge kind of story. I wish it was more of a like they were found dead kind of thing, like eaten by a dog.
Yeah.
But I do think there is something to be said about the haunting of like, I'm gonna fuck with you. And like, I'm, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's different. Maybe it's kind of like in a sad, like howl, like a longing.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, maybe.
Of like, Why didn't you save me? Ew, I don't like this. I don't like this one. That makes me really sad because that's real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I almost didn't include this one, but he kind of gets his. So I think you
Okay.
might like how it turns out. But
Okay. Oh, I thought that was it. Okay.
oh no. Well, that's
Ish,
the
but
origin of the story, but then I'll talk
okay.
about where we've seen this dog going forward.
Okay.
So the consequence of this legend says that the dog attempts to seek revenge on the sailors who ignored him as he drowned and continues to appear on other ships, seemingly dooming them.
I support it.
It said that if this dog is spotted on your ship, you are soon to go under. This is the case with the shipwrecks of the Mary Jane, the Isaac G. Jenkins, and the Thomas Hume, all of which sank in different Great Lakes. So there's 5, I believe, sank in all different, but they were all said to have spotted the same dog before going down.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm going to actually talk about 2 of the 3 that I mentioned.
Okay.
So the Mary Jane is the one that I will talk about. So this is an excerpt from Maritime History of the Great Lakes regarding the sinking, or perhaps the disappearance of the Mary Jane.
The sinking.
And this is written in like 1910s English.
So this is a long time ago. Okay.
Yeah, so this is like, so, and I'm also going to start in the middle of a sentence because it's a lot of like ship words
that we wouldn't even register what it means.
No, the point is the crew is working on the ship when a shaggy black Newfoundland poked ahead with a lolling tongue and eyes like coals of fire above the cedar posts on the port side, shambled across the deck load and leapt ashore. So shaggy black Newfoundland with like a tongue hanging out. And they said eyes like coals of fire. So glowing red eyes above the cedar post. So it came over the side of the ship, shambled across the deck. So like, and then leapt ashore. So that's what the crew has just seen. They are also, for the record, they are in the lake. I don't know how this account makes any sense, but it's interesting. So I'm going to keep talking about it.
Okay.
But they are in the middle of the lake, from what I can understand. This may have happened right before they sailed off. Possibly.
Right, like they were about to, okay.
Yes. Okay. So then a crew member is talking. Now, where did that brute come from? Asked Tinny Gardner, who worked in the elevator. Them posts is 20 feet above the air, and he must have come up the side end over them like a fly. So he's just remarking on how unlikely it was that a dog just jumped aboard.
Mm-hmm.
From the wheelhouse of the tug alongside, of course, said his practical mate. So I think from what I could find, that means like, I don't know what to call it, but like a lifeboat or something. Like they're assuming that he like stowed away or jumped onto the lifeboat and then up, as opposed to just all the way up over. Well, where did he go to? Gasped Jimmy, gaping from their perch among the grain bins. He just seemed to touch the dock and go out of sight. After a cat was the logical answer. So he's like, well, where the fuck did he go? Like he came up here out of nowhere and now he's gone. And he went ashore and now he's gone. He's not even on shore anymore. And they're just like, nah, he ran after a cat. I don't know. So that was the account of the sighting on the Mary Jane before they took off. So the air which had wafted the Mary Jane out, so out into the middle of the lake, died away soon after she dropped her tug, and for hours she lay there in the blazing sunshine. Between Port Colborne and the Mohawk light becalmed the ship of the ancient mariner. An inbound propeller passed her close and hailed her. Workmen coming out of the elevator at noon saw her shimmering in the heat. Coming back with the 1 o'clock whistle, they could not make her out. They wondered at that, for there was still no wind. So ship is sitting in the middle of, not the ocean, of the lake. And a smaller boat comes around, kind of acknowledges, and then they come back around within the hour and the boat's gone. And they're like, well, where could they have gone? Because this is a big ship with just masts. They don't have like engines or anything. There's no wind. So presumably this boat couldn't have gone anywhere. So where is it? So They thought it strange that she should have caught a puff that would carry her beyond the horizon in under an hour, unless, of course, the heat was playing tricks with the visibility. Mirage often does that. It'll distort images to the vanishing point, as well as exaggerate them all out of proportion. So they're thinking maybe they never actually saw it, or that it was actually way further away, or, you know, that the proportions were wrong. So they're like trying to dismiss it. But the Mary Jane was never seen again. There was no storm, no squall, no anything to account for her not arriving at her destination. Many a vessel has been lost with all hands on the lakes. Usually, evidences of the tragedy are all too plentiful, but from that day to this one, no one has ever seen anything of the Mary Jane. She could not have disappeared more completely if the bottom had dropped out of Lake Erie and taken her with it.
Damn.
So, yes, so they're saying there was no storm, they didn't collide with another ship, nothing. And they've never found remnants of it. They've never found anything. So they're like, the bottom could have fallen out of Lake Erie and the ship went under, and like that makes more sense than whatever actually happened.
So then I missed, how did they get the account of the sighting? Like someone was on it and then they left?
That's an excellent question. Probably yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Or like it
Yeah.
happened earlier and then maybe they went back and then
Yeah, maybe they told somebody else
went back
about
out
it.
or
Yeah,
something. Gotcha.
maybe, I don't know, but yeah.
That's spooky.
Yes, I thought that was very weird.
That's very spooky.
So that's the most in-depth black dog story that I could find with like actual accounts. But there are reports of this happening on a few ships. But some of those have no survivors of the wreck. And so it's hard to say, which you pointed out, like it's hard to say how reliable it is that they actually saw it. But I do think that there's some validity to that. Like you said, they could have told it later, or there could have been those handful of survivors that were like, no, we really did see this.
Yeah.
But the way that it's described, I'll have to post a picture with this or link to a picture or something. It's creepy. And it's not like something that people take pictures of. So it's just artist renditions for the most part. But it's like this scraggly, huge black dog with like big red, and it's like
looks like a werewolf.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. So it's super creepy, but it's really interesting. And it's interesting to me that there are multiple ships that this has happened on. And like it doesn't even have to interact with them. Like it's almost just like an omen of bad things to come.
Yeah.
And interestingly, like I did see that some people, and this may be in my notes. Yes. So some people do think that it's possible that it's not so much the dog getting revenge, but the dog warning of something bad coming. And so it's not so much that like the dog had any hand in taking the ship down, but rather just the ship is going to go down. And so I will like make a warning appearance for you. So
to like stop what you're doing and go home.
Yeah, pretty much. So there are legends and stories of people seeing ghosts or creatures to warn them of danger or to signify death incoming. And that's a fairly common trope in folklore. So I do think that people very well could have been seeing this dog that is a ghost. And I would like to think that maybe it is more of a warning than a death sentence, but maybe that's just me. So what do you think about the black dog of Lake Erie?
I just can't get over my sadness for the black dog of Lake Erie. My toxic trait is if I saw a dog like that with red eyes and snarling and stuff, my instinct would not to be afraid. I'd be like, it'll be my
I can fix this.
Yes, literally. Like no animal is scary to me, which is
that's pretty much what you did to my dog.
Yeah, I did. See, like I can do that. I can fix them. But I don't know what I think about that, because that's one of those things too, that it's one thing to say you saw like a ship, you know what I mean, that wasn't there, or some kind of like, this is stupid, like fish or something, like it's a lake. But like a dog, like that's completely like, why would a dog be there? Or like even like a rat or something, like I could see that, but that's very like unrelated to where it's like, that's very weird. for multiple people to see. But I don't know. It's interesting you say you hope that it was more of the like warning, because my instinct with that is more of like the revenge aspect. Like that's what I feel like would be happening. But I don't know. That's like seeing that, and then you're out in the middle of water and you can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that would be
or
scary.
do anything. I don't know. That's very creepy.
Yeah.
And that's also a thing of like, I feel like that's the difference, because there's one thing to be like, oh, I saw a ship and then it like wasn't there, but to be like, no, I saw a dog that had red eyes.
Yeah.
Like that's a way different sighting of like intensity of what you're seeing.
That kind of thing almost makes me wonder, like, I wonder how many have actually seen it, because I would think with something like that, like a ghost ship is sort of like, oh, I think I saw a ship on the water that wasn't really there, but ships are in the water, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But for people to actually come out and say, I think that I saw like a snarling dog with red eyes, is like, on some level, I want to say almost like more brave to come out and say that you have seen that. So I wonder if the number of people that have actually seen it is much higher.
That's a good point. Well, how crazy would it be to be like, feel like you saw that and then be like, must be insane. And then you hear someone else say the same thing. That would be a whole other kind of fear too. Cause like, oh my God, that was real. Like when I saw that.
True. Yeah.
Rather than like, that was just me kind of thing. But that's very interesting. I wonder about because you said it was in like the early 1900s.
Yes, possibly late 1800s. Hard to say, but yes.
I know this may sound kind of weird, but even just the way we've bred dogs and stuff, like dogs now look a lot different than they did that early on. So I wonder now if it looks more like what people would describe as like a beast, rather than a dog, you know, because it would look so unfamiliar.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
I don't know, like something about, animals from, because that's over 100 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Is when that would have happened. So they're going to look different. I don't know. That would be terrifying. I would interpret that more as a beast if you're saying, a huge dog with scruffy hair and red eyes. But I think after all that, though, what should have happened was the dog should have got revenge on the people who threw it off the ship.
I think it fell, to be fair.
Well, yeah.
And my thought, my thought, of course, is that they should have helped, but I do wonder if it was a big enough boat that there was just no way to get down there.
They couldn't, yeah.
But I agree. It's very sad and it shouldn't have happened in the first place. But I thought that this one was more interesting than like the Bessie kind of Loch Ness monster type stories, because I think that this one being grounded in reality makes it more interesting, because it's like, oh, this is something that actually happened and now is having like long lasting effects, versus the argument of like, you just saw a branch in the water and this whole story is stupid.
Sure.
So,
well, what I also think is like when you were reading it, there's something that's for some reason being like a witness of something like that to me is almost creepier in a way. I think I would not be able to stop thinking about it if I was the people who saw the ship and then, came back and said like it just completely was gone.
Yeah.
Like there's something about that that's really scary in its own way. Like it didn't harm you at all, but just being an observer of something weird like that, like that would just, I don't know, I like wouldn't be able to stop thinking about that forever.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Okay, so I promised you that I would talk about the shipwreck of the Thomas Hume as well. And I'm going to talk about it in this next section because it ended up coming up in two different places, which I thought was also kind of interesting.
Okay.
So the last one is Lake Michigan's Michigan Triangle. So You may be familiar with the infamous Bermuda Triangle, but have you heard of the Michigan Triangle? So this one goes from I'm going to say Manitowoc.
Okay.
I think natives say Manitowoc. Regardless, a city in Wisconsin, to Ludington, Michigan, and then down to Benton Harbor, Michigan. So it creates like a triangle that almost goes straight across on the top and then down to a point almost in the middle. Creepy stories and strange occurrences have been recorded as far back as the late 1800s, when the Thomas Hume ship, as referenced in the Black Dog story, didn't just sink, but went completely missing.
Mm.
There is also the story of the Roosevelt, which was found floating upside down, which I'll get to that in a minute as well. But first, the story of the Thomas Hume. After you tell me what you think the validity of a second Bermuda Triangle in the Michigan region, what do you think about that? Do you think that that's possible, or that it's just a coincidence?
Well, first of all, the Bermuda Triangle, I was kind of obsessed with in elementary school. Like, we had a book
Oh,
about it in our library, and I would check it out over and over again
okay.
and read it. And I really went through the school phase of like, why is no one talking about this? Like, we need to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, I need to solve this.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was going to be like a big deal as I got older.
Kind of
you
the
know?
quicksand situation.
Exactly. Yes. Oh my gosh, I love when I see this. Like, I was worried about quicksand.
Yeah.
I was worried about the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know. I think that the setup of like being over water, and like a similar atmosphere, I guess, is the original Bermuda Triangle, just like on a smaller scale, makes more sense than if it was like the Bermuda Triangle, like on land or in a desert or something like that. So I don't know. I'm not going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no to any kind of replica of the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle freaks me out. So
yeah. Okay. So the Thomas Hume was one of these ships that sank within the borders of this Michigan Triangle.
In the late 1800s, you said?
Yes, 1890. Some sources said 1891, but approximately 1890.
Okay.
So this is an excerpt from Great Lakes Underwater, which was a current, like a recent publication. So the loss of the lumber schooner, the Thomas Hume, on May 21st, 1890, was a mystery for over 100 years. The ship was owned by the Hackley Lumber Company of Muskegon, Michigan, and it was used to transport lumber to Chicago. White pine logs cut in winter from the forests of Michigan could be floated down the Muskegon River during the spring flooding and cut into boards at the sawmill near Lake Michigan. The Hume, named after Charles Hackley's business partner, was returning from Chicago empty when the ship and 6 crew members sailed into a storm and just disappeared. No trace of it was ever found for over 100 years. So this is one of the origin stories of this Michigan Triangle. However, in the 1990s, when A&T Recovery of Chicago, so a diving, like excavation company.
You know better than me.
Yeah, like people who go and look for stuff.
Right.
They discovered that an intact schooner on the bottom of Lake Michigan was sitting there unmarked and unrecorded. A trio of divers from Chicago explored the wreck for multiple years. And while it was strongly felt that the wreck was the Hume, nothing was found to positively identify the wreck. So basically this boat, which looks to be pretty well-sized because it was a lumber like shipping boat, it just never showed back up to go pick up more lumber where it was supposed to. And so they are diving and looking for something that says like SS Thomas Hume on it somewhere. Yeah. So apparently they used to use a unique set of numbers, kind of like your car has like a VIN.
Gotcha. Like
so
an ID thing.
Yeah, so they had kind of the same system for ships. So even if the name was no longer visible on the side, you should be able to find these numbers and it'll tell you what ship you're looking at. So they would usually just use the numbers or other identifying marks on it, but this one just didn't have any. It had no identifying marks on it. So they theorized for a time that the part of the ship that would have had any identifying information on it had been replaced at some point because it was either painted or literally carved into the wood of the ship. So if you had removed that board from the ship, then it would just no longer have that information. So that actually ended up being confirmed with a newspaper clip at some point, where they literally just said one sentence about this ship. So they actually had to do a lot of background research to realize that this was the ship that they had been looking for, because it started as a ship with 2 like sails on it. And then this ship that they find underwater has 3, and it has no identifying numbers. So they're like, well, this like very well may not be what we're looking for, but nobody knows what it actually is, until they found like one sentence in one newspaper, like 100 years ago. And it said, I didn't write it down, but it said something to the effect of, she went in with 2 and came out with 3 masts. And that was like it. And so they were like, oh, okay. So at some point, and I guess that's where like the identifying numbers were.
She got
somewhere,
a makeover.
Yeah. So at some point she got a facelift and ended up with 3, like they made it bigger essentially.
Gotcha.
And so the parts that held the masts, which would have been where the numbers were, those had been replaced. So anyway, so that is not the weirdest part to me. It was this section that I found out about this. Sometime in the summer of 1890, so the ship went missing in May. So later in the summer, a bottle washed ashore with a note. The writing was faded, but the person writing it said they were on the Thomas Hume, sailing from Chicago to New Buffalo, and the ship would not hold out much longer. At the time when this was found, this note was considered a hoax, and nobody believed it. But where they discovered this ship was exactly en route, and it was almost halfway between Chicago and New Buffalo, right where they should have been. So this note that everybody dismissed as a hoax was actually like the final cry for help from these sailors, which when I read that the first time, like gave me goosebumps. I think that's so creepy, which probably by the time that actually washed ashore, nobody could have helped them anyway, but just the fact that happened is very creepy to me. So oddly enough, this is a ship that was rumored to have seen the Black Dog.
Mm-hmm.
But there are no concrete stories because there were, like, from what I can tell, there were no survivors of this wreck. So it may just be a legend, but it did go down within the bounds of the triangle for sure. So I've included it in this section as opposed to the last one, but I do think that it's interesting that this ship is like listed as one of the main shipwrecks that saw this dog before going down. And they said that there was a storm, but nobody was able to actually find any evidence of it or any like reports that there had been a storm. Yeah. So it's just like surmised that there was a storm, but nobody like can prove that. So anyway, that's weird. No bodies were ever recovered. Very strange situation. So that one's weird on its own, but there's a second ship that I thought was almost weirder, and it's called the Roosevelt. The Roosevelt was a ship built in the late 1800s, and it was about 100 feet long and had a crew of between 9 and 11, so 10. So it's definitely not huge, but it was big enough to be significant and notable and, seen. It was operated out of Benton Harbor, which is one of the points of this Michigan Triangle. And it was found mysteriously wrecked within the bounds of the triangle. In 1921, according to PetowskiNews.com, it was found belly up. So literally upside down, like all of the ship top that you would walk on, the deck is face down, and the like curve is the part that's sticking out of the water. About 50 miles east of Milwaukee, which is almost smack dab in the middle, actually, of this triangle. So the news said that the vessel probably sprang a leak excuse me. So the news said that the vessel probably sprang a leak, swamped, and rolled over, but there was no storm and no sign of collision. But they never found any real evidence of the vessel having any significant damage. So not any like
It wasn't all broken up. It was
they didn't run up on rocks and spring a leak or anything. Nobody's really sure why this happened. The only theory is that there would have been water towards the bottom, and then as it started to tilt from the weight, there became like an air bubble, which caused it to stay like upright on that side. But it's still very unlikely that that would have happened and then not shown any signs of damage. So, but strangely of all, none of the crew were recovered whatsoever. There was no sign of them at all. And the ship seems to have been found within a few days. So definitely if they went under, they wouldn't have been able to swim that long. But if you assume that they had lifeboats or any kind of safety equipment, that they could have survived. The lakes are freshwater and there aren't any predators, like I discussed. And even if they died, they never washed up anywhere on shores or anything like that. So it's really weird that nothing was ever recovered in terms of crew, especially a crew of 11. Like there's a pretty significant number of people to, like, somebody's going to be found. So as far as the actual ship goes, it did end up getting towed back to shore and it was saved for its lumber, which it was carrying. The story says that it was not carrying any lumber, but it was a lumber carrying ship. So I'm not sure if that means that they salvaged like the wooden parts of the ship, like the lumber, or if that means that they got any leftover lumber shipment off. I don't know. Either way, it was salvaged and taken back to shore and inspected, and they didn't find anything. And either way, it was decommissioned after this. So all of that happened in 1921, and it never really sailed again. So that one strikes me as particularly odd because like what happened to these people? And of course, this one has reminded me of another story about the disappearance of people around a lighthouse, but I will get to that another time. But regardless, I think that this one is super duper weird because it was found upside down, like a huge, I mean, probably not huge in terms of how big ships can be, but 100 feet long and completely upside down and no people anywhere. I think that's very odd. So,
well, maybe I don't know anything, but I feel like if it was a weather related thing, like, wouldn't that be more of like an ocean kind of crazy weather? Like, is there weather that crazy in a lake that it like
no, so like,
like flips an entire huge ship upside down?
Right. So like
that seems very like, or if it would have been like, oh yeah, we literally had like the most intense storm we've ever had.
Right. Yeah, like that's not really a thing. Like you're not going to get like hurricane level like waves or, you know, anything like that.
Yeah.
Like the only thing is you can get bad like storms, like lightning, thunder, rainstorms. But yeah, I mean, you're not getting these like weird one-off sort of like mystical events that happen in the ocean. Like you'll see like tidal waves and those like tubes of water that shoot out into the sky. Like none of that is happening because a lake, like the lakes are, for example, like as long as Michigan, more or less, but it's only the distance from the coast of Wisconsin to the coast of Michigan. And so like when you're looking at it, you can sometimes, but you often can't see the end of it, like a lake that you would find at like a campground or something.
Sure.
Like it's a lot bigger than that. But I mean, you could sail the entire thing in a couple of days maximum. And if you really tried, you can get from state to state in like 8 hours. It's not that big of a deal.
It's not big enough that it would make sense to have people disappear and not ever be found and have a ship upside down and have no one know. Whereas like if that was in the middle of the ocean, like it'd be like, I mean, yeah, something crazy probably happened.
Right. Yeah. And like I think like my grandpa is sailing on the lake all the time in just like a personal sailboat. But he's said like he's never seen a wave over 6 feet,
Right.
probably, which I mean, a 6-foot wave is huge and scary,
Yeah.
but realistically, it's not taking 100-foot boat and flipping it all the way 180 like on its top, you know?
Yeah.
So the legends around it are kind of similar to the Bermuda Triangle. So some say it could be due to weather patterns and unpredictability, especially in the earlier years when we didn't have as much technology to kind of put like weather
Prepare
stations
for what weather was. Yeah.
But others say it could be something like revenge from spirits, which we kind of touched on earlier, or which are bringing down other crews like they had been brought down. And others think it could be alien related, some sort of UFO plucking off all of the people and then turning the ship over so that it looks like it went under, but maybe not doing it in a way that would actually be like naturally occurring here.
Mm-hmm.
So especially in the case of the Roosevelt, where they should have been found, at least a handful of crew members should have. So I'm interested to see like what you think about, like, do you think aliens are viable? Do you think it could be spirits or just like old-timey technology?
I think the thing that keeps standing out to me about you talking about it is the you saying like, okay, it'd be one thing for that to like happen and people to die, but the fact that there was nothing of it found is like what really trips me up, of saying, because I mean, you're right, if it was found days later, I don't know, maybe there was some kind of mistake someone made, but what ship doesn't have like life jackets and rescue boats or something, to the point where they would at least find, like, maybe this sounds stupid, but if bodies can sink or whatever, but like life jackets would be floating.
Right.
Like, wouldn't they like find life jackets?
It's like a Titanic situation where they only have
or
half
like
as many as
proof
they
of
need,
like, okay, there was people, like there's life
like people
jackets floating in
tried.
the water,
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, yeah, like it's for a few days, you're not going to starve to death or get dehydrated or get killed by an animal.
So yeah, and even then in this area where, I mean, I wouldn't recommend drinking the lake water, but it is fresh water. It's not going to kill you like salt water will.
Right.
And there's not sharks surrounding your boats, and there's not like an octopus like clinging to the bottom of it trying to reach inside. Like, I don't know, like the biggest things in there are probably just like whatever big fish breed is in there. Like that's not,
I think that's going to kill a person.
Yeah. So I think it's very unlikely that every single shipwreck is just due to human error or whatever, especially when they're not sending out any kind of distress signals. There's like no record of anything going wrong. It's just somebody sailed by and was like, that doesn't look right.
Well, I have another, maybe this is really dumb, but if there is a situation where the boat tipped over and they found it, and so you're saying the curved part of the bottom of the ship was up. If there was a situation where people fell off of, like, could people not like get on top of that and not drown?
Maybe.
Do you know what I mean?
I know like, some of it would be like suction, like it would create like a vacuum coming under, but I mean,
but then wouldn't the bodies like be there?
Right. And
or like suction. Maybe I'm
idiot, dumb, but like, could you jump off far enough away from the boat to where once it's wrong side up completely, could you then like crawl on top of it? Yeah.
Like, they just didn't try hard enough, whatever.
My toxic trait is thinking I could survive
I could survive that. What? No. I see in these things, like, okay, so it's one thing to talk about like completely supernatural, like whatever, but things that like did happen, you know what I mean? It's just so crazy. Like, this is one of the things where I'm like, okay, when I die, I hope I can like find out, like,
I want,
you know what I mean, whatever happens. Hume. Like any kind of situation like this just makes me think of what is it, the Detlef Pass, is that what I'm thinking of? We could do a whole episode about that, of just like, what the fuck happened to these people. But I don't know. I guess my thoughts are, first of all, it's just really interesting. Like I would have never thought about like the Michigan lakes being haunted or the Great
Yeah.
Lakes being haunted. Like that's very interesting. I don't know. That one is really sticking with me of where they never like, I don't understand why there wouldn't be any proof of any bodies or anything. The letter in the bottle is really sad.
Yeah.
But what that shows me is something like spontaneous didn't happen. I know that was the other ship, but like, you know what I mean? That wasn't like I mean, I would assume if something crazy happened right away, you wouldn't have enough time
Right.
to write a letter and do that. So that shows me that maybe that was more, not necessarily saying it wasn't some kind of like foul play involving something non-human, but wasn't so quick that it was like they didn't see anything coming. I don't know, but I also think it's interesting that like these I mean, it makes sense that more things like this happened like 100 years ago because we didn't have as much, you know, technology and advanced like making of the ships to make them better if they just broke or something. But it is interesting how like I'd be more curious to know about any, like if anything like this has happened in any of the lakes like more recently, you know what I mean? Or was it like a phase, like there was something visiting that lake in that area for that like while, like they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like all this was happening and then they like moved on and that's why it's like stopped.
That's an
Like,
interesting
you know
theory.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was, because it sounds like it was all kind of like around the same time ish.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like that's kind of interesting to me, is like, why did this all happen? Like a lot of this was happening and then it just like stopped.
True. I don't know that it stopped. These were just my examples, but yeah, that's an interesting idea, because I do know that like ships still go down there, but
I mean, that's going to happen like literally everywhere.
That's true. But even then,
not
like,
in like mysterious, like unexplainable ways.
Right. And now like they have Coast Guard stations and stuff like that. So if you're in any kind of distress, you can just call for the my grandpa has done it before, has like called for the Coast Guard and they will just come and get you. And it doesn't have to be like life or death. I mean, it should be serious, but it doesn't have to be life or death. Like my grandpa was basically just, I think that he ran out of fuel or something. And he was like, there is no wind. I'm extremely well versed in sailing, but there is no wind. I am literally stranded and I have drifted too far out. Like I need somebody to come tow me back. And so like they'll come get you. So there's just no reason for, especially these huge ships, to be going completely unnoticed, you know, going under with nobody knowing literally what happened at all.
Yeah.
But I think this is all really interesting. And maybe this is like sparked by like a childhood fascination, but somewhere up north, I think it was up north, there is a section of the lake where the water's pretty clear and there's a boat with a glass bottom and they will take you over shipwrecks and you can look down and like see it actually like right there under you, which is very creepy, but is definitely super interesting because I think that it like makes it more real. Because I think when you talk about some huge ship that went under 100 years ago, it's kind of like, oh, that's crazy, whatever.
Yeah.
But when you actually see it right underneath of you, it completely changes the meaning of, you know, a like shipwreck.
Makes it real. Yeah. That's another thing I was gonna say was I also think, because I don't know obviously hardly anything about things like not decomposing over time, but like not being recognizable. I don't really know what I'm saying, but I think it's kind of weird that even after 100 years, like it's like, okay, even after how many more people have been on the lake and explored every part of it, like no one ever, even 70 years later, found the ship, you know what I mean? Like never, because I mean, it makes sense. Maybe they wouldn't find any evidence, you know, like within 10 years of it happened. But even after, like that was over 100 years ago, like no one ever
right.
ever, like if it's at the point where they're having like little tours of showing shipwrecks, like that would make me think that they would have been like no one ever found anything. Like,
right. And there are
I don't know.
others, there's a handful of ships that have just never been found. And that baffles me to no end, because the Great Lakes are primarily fed by glacier melt. And so it like runs down this way, and then the Great Lakes end up emptying into the actual ocean. But it only goes,
I guess I didn't know that. Yeah, that makes sense.
So but like mostly it's self-contained. And so like a shipwreck lost in the big ocean makes sense to me, but a shipwreck lost in like a self-contained body of water.
That's what I'm saying. That's why that's so weird.
That is like relatively small, all things get, like we found the Titanic, like I don't know. It just seems so odd to me that, and it's not like insanely deep. I should have looked up like how deep it is, but it's not anything like the ocean.
Right.
And a lot of it drops off into sandbars versus like a rocky shore like you get in actual ocean a lot of times. So I don't know. It just seems so odd that there are even ships that are just unfound at all, which is part of what makes me think that there either is or was something like really strange going on.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I was thinking was, and you're talking about, like, I don't know as much about what causes like bodies in the water to like sink versus can float or on shore, like what, because I don't know, because you hear about like bodies wash up on shores which time, and that's like in the ocean. So like the idea, but I guess there's not really, so that's what I was thinking about, there's not really like huge waves in the like, but if what they're arguing is that there was a storm crazy enough that it like made their ship sink or like get ruined or whatever, then wouldn't that mean that the water was crazy enough like the bodies would go, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you would think so. And
like if there was big waves in a storm, then wouldn't a lot of the bodies have washed up on shore?
Right. And I know that a lot of the reason that bodies do wash up at all is air in them. And so it gets gross fast, but most of the time bodies don't sink because the bacteria that are present in your body start like, I don't know, they just like continue doing their job because they don't care that you're dead. Like they're separate entities from you physically. And so usually you would expel those gases, but instead those like build up in you. And like, that's also why a lot of times dead whales or manatees, like these big animals, will float towards the shores because that's like the same thing is happening, and they build up gases, which is also how we get like exploding whales on shores, which is disgusting. But
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, but the only thing that would interrupt that really is fish, like eating it. But again, given that it's not the ocean, like how many, I don't know types of fish, but how many fish that are only like a foot long is it going to take to eat 11 people?
Yeah.
Like you would think that they would have seen somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially if they found the capsized ship days later, I wouldn't think that bodies days later would have gotten decomposed enough or something to like disappear in the water. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like they're not just disintegrating.
They would still be like around probably the area of the ship ish.
Yeah.
Or wash. Yeah, I don't know. That's really weird that no. Because even if there were even if the ship was upside down and there were bodies found, it still would be like, what the fuck happened?
Right.
But you know what I mean? Like, even if it was like, oh, these people obviously drowned.
Yeah.
It would still be like, how?
Right. Yeah.
So it's not like that's the only weird thing. It's like an even weirder thing that there's no evidence of it, because it's like, what?
Yes.
But then at that point, I guess if you're arguing that this is some kind of like supernatural alien thing or something like that, then it would be like, well, then why is the ship even there?
True.
Like if you're able to just like make, you know what I mean? Like the bodies just literally disappear, then like why would the ship still be there? So I don't like, if you're thinking of it from that perspective, if they're trying to hide it, then why would there be any evidence?
That's true. Maybe it seems more normal, quote unquote normal,
Sure.
for a ship to just be wrecked.
Yeah.
As opposed to completely go missing.
Just never
and
come
so,
back. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're just like, oh, it's broken.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
Messed up.
You know, like, I don't know if they were trying to, whatever like supernatural force was trying to make it look like a normal shipwreck, but didn't really know how to go about that. And so they were just like, oh, the ship is broken. It's upside down. And then now we're all like, what the hell was happening?
Right.
But that was just their best guess at what a shipwreck looked like. I don't know.
Well, what do you think after doing more extensive research on all it? Like, what are your thoughts on all this?
On specifically the Michigan Triangle?
Yeah, or just the with the dog, or just like anything.
I think
of
it's
what we've been talking about.
I feel the same way.
You've been giving the facts, but not your opinions.
True. I feel the same way that you do. I am like a believer. I'm not just like not a skeptic. I am very much, I believe it.
Right.
So I think that maybe the only thing I would be like maybe about would be like alien abductions just happening randomly. But I don't know. Like, I don't know the rules of aliens. Probably they did get abducted. Right. And the people that say I got abducted, I'm like, yeah, you probably did. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But to just speculate that that's what happened, I'm like less hesitant to just say like probably that. But regardless, I don't know. I definitely, the ghost ship thing is a thing that happens. People see it.
Like you have personal, yeah. Your family has seen it.
And I was convinced that I saw one.
I was going to ask you that too, because you've been there a lot.
Yeah, I think it could have been a lighthouse in fog kind of situation. I don't know. I didn't get the telescope out or anything, but it's weird. You see weird stuff there. There's also a lot of interesting like cryptid, like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, like kind of spooky things. There's a lot of that kind of mythology, folklore going on in that area as well. So I don't know. I believe that the ghost ships are being seen. I don't know what it is necessarily. I think it probably is a ghost ship, but regardless, people are seeing it. The dog, I think, is also very possible.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an omen of danger coming or if it's like a revenge kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, so either way, there's a direct story. Like it'd be one thing if people like I've been seeing, like we keep seeing people have been seeing this dog, and it's just like, okay, where, like, what does that even come from? But the fact there's another correlating story of like, oh yeah, there's a dog that got off the ship and it died.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I think again that's one of those things where it's like they said it happened. I don't know. It probably did.
Yeah.
And who knows, like I would be interested. That's one that I would think is interesting to see if there are any recent accounts of that, of people, saying that we saw it and then, our compass was broken. And if we hadn't fixed that before we left, like we would have been goners or whatever.
Sure. Or we saw it and then someone got sick, so we ended up not going. And then...
Yeah, I would be interested to see something like that. I couldn't really find anything about that, but I don't know. Like, I would like to think that that's probably happening. And then the Michigan Triangle thing, I think, is definitely weird. If nothing else, it's weird that there's such a high concentration of shipwrecks in this area that are so out of the ordinary.
Well, because that's the other thing. If you're talking about the ocean, it's like, okay, this is a geographically large enough area that maybe the weather is distinctively like different there. But in a lake, like that's not small. That's not enough space that it would be like the environment would be like different than the rest of the lake.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely weird. I don't know if maybe they're losing signal in that area for whatever reason, and that's causing more ships to go down. I don't know if there's some sort of weird weather thing happening. My assumption is that something supernatural is going on.
Yeah.
I think it's too weird. I think it's too far out of the ordinary to just be like, meh, just found upside down. We don't know. I think there's something weird going on.
I think so too. Looks like we have to go investigate. Tell your grandparents we're gonna stay at them.
Yeah, we'll be there in 12 hours.
Have they was that the only time they've ever had a ghost ship?
No, they've seen
vision?
them.
Or that was the one that was the most like, that's right, like that's their gotcha.
That was the one that has stuck with them the most because it was so real and so weird. All the rest of them, they believe that they saw them. I think it's happened probably 5 or 6 times, but I mean, they've also lived there for 20 or 30 years. Like, so in all of that time, it's only happened, once every 4 or 5 years. But my grandpa is also like infamous for just sort of standing there looking at the lake. I think there's an old book called like Old Man in the Lake, and I never read it, but that's
the
him.
Old Man in the Sea.
Oh, yeah. That's him anyway, regardless of sea. He just sort of like looks at the water a lot. And especially in the morning, I think that he likes that it's like really calm and quiet. And so just sort of looking at something serene is nice. So he spends a lot of time looking at a place where creepy things could manifest. And then every now and then they do. But by far and away, that's the one that has stuck with them to be like, what the fuck?
Like, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah. Because everything else, it's like, maybe it was fog.
Right.
Maybe that ship was real and it just like was going really fast.
But like, no, I can still remember seeing that now.
Yeah.
Like, that was,
Yeah. So that one is super weird. And in my mind, that one is very credible. But, I kind of believe everybody's stories because to me, that one is extremely credible because it's my grandparents. But to somebody else, they can write that story off really easily because it's just some old people saying they saw something weird. So, who am I to decide on somebody's credibility in terms of seeing something crazy that they know that they saw,
Yeah, but it's also one thing if people are telling it as like to try to get their name out there, like get in a newspaper or something. But if it's just something like, why would you lie about that? That's weird.
Right.
Or like what would you be gaining from that?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's true.
Like that's even more credible to me as people who it's just like comes up and like, oh yeah, that, like not trying to get a bunch of attention for it, but just being like, not that if you're trying to get attention for it, that's bad, because maybe you saw something insane and you're
right
needing to get attention for it. But
yeah.
Well, now I'm like not super excited about the idea of going there, but
it's very pretty. It's very worth it.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting too, because I feel like since that's such a personal thing to you, like that's why you've looked into it. But like to everyone else, like Lake Michigan, like that'd be like, what? That's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's a very niche.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yes.
Which is cool.
Yeah. And there are similar types of stories everywhere, but I just thought that those ones were interesting just from my own personal connection to it.
Yeah.
So thank you for indulging me.
Yeah, of course. I got on the side of TikTok of like Appalachian horror stuff.
I almost did that this week.
Really?
Yes.
Because I was on it was like, because you know how there's like the POV you grew up in whatever.
Yeah.
It's like POV you grew up in God's country, and it was like hashtag Appalachian, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like creepy pictures, and literally all the comments were like, oh no, like do not go out in the dark here. Like it's beautiful during the day. A lot of these areas are so nice, but like if you go out at night or you drive around in the mountain areas at night, like you will see things.
Yes.
And there was just tons of comments of people who were like, oh yeah, I live there. Like it's a well-known, like my mom would always, like that one thing, it was like my mom would hear me yelling her name at night, and like I wasn't.
That gave me chills. I hate that idea.
I know. there's all kinds of creepy little, it's interesting because it's one thing to have like long stories are one type of creepy, but another type of shiver creepy is like something like that, like just a tiny account of, you know what I mean? Or like the TikTok I told you of that guy that was just like, remembering when I was younger and I would visit this black goat in the woods that would stand on two legs, and
Oh
like
my
I didn't
God.
think that was weird. Like just things like that I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like I don't know, but then that's also like that seems real to me. Like that's such a weird thing to make up. That like when you were, I don't know, little creepy stuff like that is like, have you watched Two Sentence Horror Stories on Netflix?
I may have watched like one and then thought it was dumb.
It was kind of dumb, but like the
Okay.
concept
Yeah.
was good, I felt like, of that short stuff. But yeah, so I do find it interesting when you're talking about the Great Lakes or like the Appalachian region. Like there's certain regions or places like where I don't know much about. I mean, I'm sure to some extent there's some creepy, scary things that have happened like literally everywhere, but there are areas like I don't know. It's hard to explain why there are areas that are specifically it happens more there.
Well, yeah, and that makes you wonder if it's like an energy thing or what is causing. But I know that like this region is known for like demon type stuff.
This region meaning
like the Kansas, Missouri region
where we live.
Yeah. And like, of course, there's Stull, Kansas, which is not far from Lawrence. And that's like, there's a cemetery known as like the Gateway to Hell.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
And oh my God, off the top of my head, I can't remember. There's a church. Oh, now it's escaping me. I think it's in Missouri. I think that there's a church in Missouri where the basement is said to be like another portal to hell, which like in a church kind of gives me the heebies. But
yeah,
and I'm not even particularly religious, but just the juxtaposition of those ideas is like, ooh.
Yeah. Icky.
But yeah, it's interesting to me what is associated with what regions, just like, and I'm sure some of it is like a historical significance.
That's what I was gonna say, like the historical, like almost even like trauma of what's happened to people in those areas. Like when you think about how, yeah, I mean, living in rural Appalachia is a whole different like cultural experience. So it's very interesting that historically certain places that people have faced more just like hardship and troubles of things, and like that's where there's more, I don't know, it's very interesting. But I think the geographical, this area is like this is what happens and that's what happens, I almost feel like makes it seem more like credible, or like makes me even more of a believer of like it's varies and different rather than just like everyone sees ghosts everywhere and that's all that happens. Like
true.
I don't know, or like what you're saying where it's based off of things that actually happened. Like it's not you're not debating about whether or not this ship disappeared in this, you know what I mean? Like it happened, and then like there's theories or stories that spin off of that. Like you can't even argue. Like sometimes it's not, I don't know, but yeah, I could listen to this kind of stuff all day. Like
that's good. This might become more of my specialty.
Oh, I'm here because, but if this observer, like if I'm trying to talk about this stuff, I would not be a good host of that, I don't think. But I love hearing about it and like talking about it and sharing my reaction. But
well, do you have any closing thoughts about this one in particular?
My closing thoughts on this one are, this is giving me a new perspective on like, I'm even more scared of open water now.
I did not mean to do that to you.
No, it's fine. It's just, it's interesting because I think of, everything you're talking about, ships capsizing and bad weather and things going missing. It's like, I always kind of felt like, oh yeah, I mean, the ocean's huge, so like that's gonna happen. But the fact that it's like the same thing's happening and it's such a small place, it's like, oh, maybe when that happens in the oceans, it actually is a lot more suspicious than you would
True.
think, because it's not just because it's, I don't know if it
Mhm.
happens in other water too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And it's very interesting to hear about your grandparents having firsthand
Yeah.
experience of that as well. That's really cool
Yeah. Yeah, I
to
think
talk
so
to them
too.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
thank
good.
you so much for
Yes.
preparing and sharing all that.
Yes.
All
Do
brand new
you-
information to me.
Yeah, good. Okay. Well, that's that, huh?
Love it.
Okay. Bye, honey.
Bye, honey.